Hey guys, welcome to another mixing tutorial on the Patreon page. Let's take a look at these tones on this cover of Shadow Moses by Bring Me the Horizon. You know it, you love it, a classic of the genre. When this came out, I was in school and I was not into metal, really, which was interesting to think that just fucking 6 years ago or whatever it was, I wasn't into metal. I remember my friends hearing this, a few of my friends, and I listened to it, and I thought it was the coolest thing. Little did I know that metalcore would be kind of my life later, which is pretty awesome. Let's run down the mix. Story time is over. Pretty lame story time anyways, but that was me turning off the Master Bus plugins because I'll talk about them at the end. And let's talk about this drum sound. So this drum sound is a new drum sound that I have cooked up with the Invasion by Get Good Drums. So this is my latest drum sound, and it's described in great detail in the last mixing tutorial. So that should be Thornhill's song Nurture. And if you want the rundown on the drums, in case you haven't watched that yet, go watch that one, because that is going to save about 20 minutes of this mixing tutorial where I describe every single plugin on each little drum. And it's a drum sound that I am very happy with. Has great precision on the kick and snare. But it's still compressed enough that I have good length on everything. Go check that out. It involves a few new plugins I have, like the Arouser compressor, which will be used a lot in this mix. Let's go watch the drums, and then let's move on to bass. So in this mix, I use STL Tone Hub for the bass and guitar for a very, very good reasons. So David Bandith mixed Sempiternal. He has a pack. Let's use his bass tones, right? I thought it was only fitting. Here's preset 4, which was one of the more distorted ones that isn't very distorted when you start it up. The gain here is at about 8 and the treble is like 5. It sounds something like this. I turned up the gain and I turned up the treble to get that big clank, and it's an awesome bass tone. Then I decided I wanted more clank, and by that, to do that, I put a distortion before the amplifier. So I'm distorting the DI with Saturn. I'm distorting the mid-range between 500 and 2,500. Giving the mid-range clank and also that high-end sizzle. Just a little bit, just enough to boost the high-end into the amp. After that, EQ. Doesn't need a lot of EQ. As you can see, this is not a lot of EQ when it comes to my bass mixing. There's just a little bump in the low end at 150 that can be taken care of by the guitars, can go away on the bass. A boost at 2K to get that fizz, that clank, going. And here's the few whistles at 2K and 3K. Not a big difference. And I am trying to use the Distressor emulation, the Arouser, for compression on bass and guitar here today. And I like the results. So high ratio, aggressive compression, because I would usually almost always use limiters for this job. Not almost always, sometimes. And a high ratio can emulate that behavior, but the attack and release are malleable, which is cool. And by leaving a little 8 millisecond delay on the compressor acting, I can get pick attack of the bass going through the compressor and becoming very loud. You can hear the pick after the silences get very aggressive, and everything is a little bit more consistent. That's a compressor's job, and that's an awesome bass tone. So guitars, I'm very proud of the guitars today. This is my Telecaster, my very first electric guitar, with 6-month-old strings, so not good at all. Put some freshener on those bad boys. It lasts for a few minutes, the freshening effect, but just put it on twice during the cover, or thrice. And not too shabby of a DI, but you can hear this very mid-rangey, barky character of this guitar that goes perfectly with the Bring Me the Horizon sound, since Lee used his Epiphone with low output pickups that should sound a little bit something like this, maybe even barkier. And then Lee Malia has a tone hub pack. What can I tell you? It's amazing. It's just his tone. It's too good. It is too good. Really enjoying its character through a similar guitar, a barky, old school instrument. So awesome. Little EQ. So my usual palm mute low end control at about 140. Keeping those palm mutes in check when they're too loud. And then a little barky thing at 240 that I take away. Just a little annoying note at the B flat note, that is the key of the song, and a mid-range boost to get them closer to the original. The original is almost too mid-rangey, and I try to get a little bit closer to it with this. Without it, it's a very cool, more scooped effect. This is a little boost towards the original. And again, compression. So similar philosophy to the bass, but just faster everything. I want it to react faster to the chugs so that it keeps them in check. And I want the release to be faster as well so that it brings the guitar up immediately after taking it down. So it's a little bit more aggressive of a compression setting. It just brings the guitar out this. I'm very happy with it. Very. There's Saturn automation here. I'm turning on some saturation on this DI to make it feedback. Very aggressive stuff. Yep. Lo-fi tone. Just the same tone here with a very aggressive, very aggressive radio style EQ. Oh, and the Waves Kings microphones plugin, that is my lo-fi secret weapon. You go from a good tone to a shaked tone in no time, and then you filter it. It's just an effect. You can do this any way you like. This little lead, just those 2 seconds, is the rhythm 3 on this. No reason why. And then a lot of low-end filtering. Literally this. It's for 3 seconds. Who cares? The lead though, first things first, I limit the DI because it's very pokey, the pick attack. This makes it a little bit woofier, but more controlled. Then it's that same rhythm 3, but with the gain turned down considerably. And then the delay and reverb are obviously on. Most important parameter is filtering the reverb so that it's not too big. Controlling the mid-range as well. Helps it fit in. There's a choir at the beginning. This is my poor man's Omnisphere, which I love. Expand, the boy. Female choir. Terrible by itself, good in the mix. Yep, scooping the mid-range and boosting the highs. Making it thinner, good for the track. And then making it super consistent with MV2. MV2 is a limiter that brings up the lower level material of your track and turns down the high level material, making it a consistent sausage of volume. So it's killing all these fluctuations and leaving us with a constant note. Strings. There's an EQ to make the strings a little bit duller at the beginning. That is turned off after. So that was that uninteresting. Long strings. Beautiful free Labs by Spitfire. Free strings that you should download and get right now. This shouldn't be free. Into EQ, because the chords I chose were very bassy and I had to mix against them. And as beautiful as they are, I can't afford all that low end. So this is basically a glorified high cut and is it a high cut or a low cut? Low cut. Glorified low cut with a big ass 300 scoop. That's all this is. And then the same philosophy, crushing the volume to make it very consistent. Love it. Spiccato strings. Sonny Vox, the boy. Very inexpensive strings. Very effective. And it's the same EQ. I copy pasted it. Very happy with the balance on that chorus. There's a sub bass at the intro. Here's a cool tip. If you like the texture of a very aggressive bass sound, but the part doesn't call for it, just filter the high end and you'll get still a cool texture, but a way duller sound. You can still hear harmonics, but it's not inadequately annoying. This track has my effects, just cymbal swells and explosions and more and more, and that's it. This beat has a cool tricks. So that's the kick I started with. I EQ'd it a bit. It was a bit too honky in the mid-range and it needed some bass. That's better. Needed way more bass. Our bass bringing in all the content at 60 Hertz. And then delay on a kick drum. What? Wow. 8th note delay when the rhythm is dotted and funky like this gives you this cool bounce that is very, very cool on a kick drum of all things. Just filter the sub low end so that there's no subs going into the sides. You're good. Very cool sound design on this clap as well. Yup. How do we go from that to that? So how to explain this? The clap in the original has a very notey quality where it plays an F. Can you tell from the look in our eyes? Do. It plays the 5th of the do 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 do. Can you tell from the look in our eyes? You can hear it go. Can you tell from the look in our eyes? I can EQ that note into our clap. It's very easy with FabFilter because you could just click a note and it's going to give you a band in that note. And if you put a reverb after that, you'll get a ringing note. If I remove the EQ, oh yeah, the high-end filter is important as well. Oh boy, my delivery. Oh, it's behind the camera. I just got an email notification for FedEx delivery. That's a different tune. Well, I hope you guys learned something from this mixing tutorial. I, for one, am very, very proud of this mix. Maybe one of my best yet. Oh yeah, master bus, right? Then I want to blow it up in the master bus. Gullfoss is the first thing. This guy just is very dynamically changing my mix into the best version of itself. It's what Gullfoss attempts to do. And the way it does that is by dynamically adjusting the bass, turning it up when the kick isn't playing, which is very useful, because if I turn the bass and the master bus up, the kick is too loud. So this is a way to only turn the bass up when the kick isn't playing. There's a cool cymbal sheen, and there's lots of mid-range tweaks. Hear it for yourself, it's the best. I like this guy. It's a flavor to my mix. 2% better, arguably not even better, just a different flavor with more a hi-fi feel. Compression though, that's no question. You need it. And yep, let's see how much I'm compressing the mix bus. You can see I'm aiming for about a constant 1 dB to 2 dB of compression, which just glues the mix together and allows the guitars to be as loud as the drums, which is very important. And there's a little bass boost at about 100, that woofy, round, beautiful frequency with the transformer iron. Tape. The tape guy is here to soften the mix a little bit, because it's a very aggressive hi-fi mix after all these compressions and boosts, and the cymbals are very very shiny, and tape kind of softens that and makes it even more bass heavy. It's very subtle though. It's super subtle, but it's like a 0.5% more the direction I want it to be. I need to learn how to use it better. That's what I always say, and it's always true. And the linear multiband compressor is a final compressor I use. It's a chance for me to compress the mix a little bit more individually, adjusting different frequency bands. And in this case, I chose to control the low end a little bit more. Just making sure the kick and the bass are tightly locked in. This turns down the kick, which allows the bass to be around the same volume as it. Good job. Limiting. Very simple limiting philosophy. Cutting the kick and snare, chopping them off at the limiter, allows everything else to go up. Let's see them. You could see it's just when the kick and snare are hitting, they'll be chopped off, and when they aren't playing, the limiter should hardly be touching the mix. I leave that job to a second limiter that I sometimes use when I want to destroy things. I'll just add 1 dB of gain with the Pro L2. And this just allows me to get that extra little bit of loudness in a more transparent way than just adding 1 dB at ozone. Because splitting the load between two different limiters, if you have the CPU, sounds a bit more natural. And yeah, it's just because I wanted this one to be very crushed, as it is a simple mix that doesn't need a lot of detail. Sound bad, but it's not very complicated riffs is what I mean. So yeah, again, thank you guys so much for watching and supporting. Leave any comments and questions down below on the Patreon page. Some of you guys have been commenting recently, which has been very good. I want to see more comments on the Patreon, which is cool. Maybe I'll start trying to build our own community here, because there's like 200 of you already, which is insane, and maybe we could start something cool. So yeah, see you in the next one. Take care. Thanks.